You know, whatever it is, I hope it's just a lot of damn good fun. Welcome to it. I am Wendy Campbell, and this is the Source of the Sound. Now, if you're not familiar, I am not surprised. Source of the Sound was a project that we started like 12 years ago. And the idea was that we were going to do these great interviews that would take an hour or two, and then we'd condense them into 1 or 2 minute segments for the radio, which sounds great when you're programming a radio station, but quite frankly, you miss everything. You miss all the details. You miss all the good stories. Kind of broke my heart a little bit. So this, I think, drove me into retirement, which sadly, took a little time for me to recover from. So here we are, a few years later. Apparently, my time is not done. I still want to hear stories, and I still want to get to know the artists. So I'm bringing it back, and hopefully you stick around and check it out. Who knows what it's going to bring? Hopefully it stays in the music genre, but it could go in so many different directions. I'm always open to suggestions and down to interview anybody. So let me know. Hit me up in the comments. We'll take care of business there. Otherwise, tonight we get you hooked up with Painted City. Now, Painted City are close personal friends of mine. They're a synth-pop band here in Denver. Now, I wasn't really sure what that was because I came from rock and roll. So it took me a minute to get in, but now I get it now. I get it, and I want to give it to you. So I'm gonna. And we'll cover everything. They're friends, so it gets a little friendly, and we have some interesting conversations, and there's some music in there too. I hope you enjoy it. But definitely stick around till the end. I'll get you hooked up with dates. I'll get you hooked up with locations to find their music. All the good stuff. Right now, though, keep it locked. This is Source of the Sound with Painted City.
So he exists, it looks like.
Or some essence of his vibrational spirit.
Zack, if you are with us, please knock 3 times.
Come into the light.
It's a seance.
Oh, we should do a seance. That would be so fun.
That would be, you know what? Business idea, virtual seance.
Okay, we're going to do that tonight. After we wrap up the interview, we're going to do that.
Well, you got a Ouija board?
I don't have a Ouija. I won't go near Ouija boards.
You don't Ouija?
I won't Ouija. But I got tarot cards. I'll go get my tarot cards.
There you go. Why, did you have a bad experience with a Ouija board?
Yeah.
A little too real?
Catholic school. Was my bad experience. Yeah. I think I believe enough in the possibility of negative energy and negative, like, lingering energy that inviting random spirits into my house just feels like a really dumb idea.
Yeah.
I also had there was a ghost in my house when I was in Colorado Springs, and
yeah.
So
I had someone ask me before, like, so you're an atheist? Yes. Do you believe in ghosts? I'm like, yep. And I fully acknowledge that's totally hypocritical, but I've seen enough fucking ghosts to say
why
yes.
can't you believe in both? Why can't you not
saying.
believe in God and still believe in energy?
You can believe in both. Oh, I can't believe in God.
Not if you're an atheist. If you're an atheist, there's no God.
Yeah. I thought you said, why can't you believe in God and ghosts? And I was like, I don't know. That seems pretty plausible.
That seems pretty plausible. But if you tell me you're an atheist, then I'm going to question your belief in ghosts, because
you should. It doesn't make any sense. I fully acknowledge that.
But I'm still down for a seance.
But
dude,
ghosts are real. I've seen them.
Yeah, me too.
Freak
so
me
are
out.
aliens, and I wish you guys would get on board with that.
Aliens are real. There is a debate. We had this the other day with somebody. I think that everyone at the table agreed aliens are real, but there was a debate as to whether or not they've been to Earth.
Well, why wouldn't they come to Earth?
Because
if they've been anywhere, why wouldn't they come here?
Like, I would imagine the scheme of infiniteness, one, we're probably pretty far away.
Okay.
Two, like, I'm just saying there could be like some sort of weird frog looking thing on another planet, whether or not smart enough to, travel through space and time. I don't know, but there's definitely some form of life somewhere in the universe. I bet you some of it's smarter. I bet you some of it's dumber.
Yeah.
But whether or not it's been here, I'm not saying it couldn't have been here. I'm just saying I don't think there's definitive proof that it absolutely has. They have been here.
Okay. I don't know that there's any kind of proof or disclaimer towards anything about alien life. I am merely saying that my version is a lot more fun than your version.
Anyway, what's your version of aliens?
Oh, I think they've been here the whole time. I think they come back and forth. Yeah.
Pyramids and all that.
I don't know about that. Like, I don't know if I buy into the whole ancient alien theory, but I like the idea. Like, I've seen Zack, and I'm pretty sure he's an alien. Oh,
I mean, if he was an alien, I feel like he could figure out how to
I
turn on at least audio or video.
I would hope, or maybe they're just not technology aliens. Maybe he's just like, the communications alien. I did see a UFO, 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
Right outside NORAD, which made everybody really comfortable. But
yeah.
I wasn't alone. Like, I wasn't alone when it happened. I saw it with like 5 people in my car. They all saw it. I went on the radio and talked about it. So I'll tell you the whole story and we'll break it down. So I'm driving in my car. I'm coming down Circle Drive in Colorado Springs, right? It's after my daughter's like performance at school. And we're all in the car. It's like 9:30, maybe 9:45. It's pretty late. We're coming around this curve and it kind of curves around. So have you spent much time in Colorado Springs?
No.
Okay. So Circle Drive curves around and basically it kind of goes this way through town. And then as you're coming around, you come around and you come right out where.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Oh,
there we go.
There he is.
We can hear you. Oh, wow. You have a nice camera.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. That's like a full-on cinematic camera. I'm feeling very underwhelmed with my camera.
Yeah, I know. Mine sucks compared to the Jack. You can't come anymore.
I know. You bring the good sound. The good
I'm literally an audio visual technician.
It's true.
You should come to my house then and set up my whole kit, and then I'll pay you. It will be awesome.
I'm just clicking on your picture right now, Zach, just because your camera quality is so nice.
Are you trying to pet him through the camera?
I am trying. I'm definitely petting him.
Little lonely. So anyway, I'm going to finish my story. I'm going to finish my alien story.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
So we're coming around the curve, and on this side of Circle is basically you can see some houses, and then there's Fort Carson, and then NORAD is kind of directly in front of you as you're coming around on Circle, right? So NORAD, as you know, is in the mountain, kind of about halfway down, right? So as we're driving down Circle, we're coming down, and these 3 balls of like red light come flying down, like full, like I thought comets were hitting NORAD. I didn't know what was going on, but like came flying down and then stopped right probably about, I don't know, like a couple 100 yards up in the air, right? And hovered. So one by one, they come shooting down out of the sky like fucking bombs, like just full out down. And then they stop and they hover there for probably 5 hours. Because I went on
them for 5 hours.
And they just hovered there. So it wasn't like flares. Like we went on the air. I like the alien stories. So anytime there's flares or lights in the sky over any of the installations, we talk about it. And somebody in the back office would call and say, no, nobody's in the field. Nobody's playing with flares tonight. Nobody's doing this. Nobody's doing that. So guy called me up and he's like, no, I totally know what you're talking about. He's like, I saw all of it. He's like, I am the guy who issues the flares. They did not go out that night. And I was like, cool. But nobody knows what they were, why they were there, or exactly when they disappeared. But it was well after midnight because I saw it happening at like 9-ish. Then they were there. Probably I got calls, people telling me they watched him till 2.
Cool.
Isn't that fun? Yes, but this was 2007 or 8. So you take a picture, it was a flip phone. I want to say it was like one of those early flip phones. And so
look at that. You see this pixel?
See like this
That's
little
an alien
thing. Yeah. It wasn't impressive enough.
From 800,000 feet away, right? Or whatever.
Right. I'm really sad though. And then I saw another one when I was driving, and this again was a full car. It was me, my kids, and my son's dad. And we're driving through, it was between Gallup, New Mexico, and whatever side we were on. And we're driving on the interstate, and like the one they talk about, the like black diamond, like the triangle with the red circle in the middle, just hovering, like not going fast, not going slow, just kind of keeping time with traffic, right? And then zips away.
Like was following people down the highway or something?
Yeah, for like I'd say probably about 10 minutes, and then just disappeared.
Cool.
I also do not have camera proof of that either.
I saw Bigfoot once. He lives in my basement. This is him over here. He's off camera.
Was it a mirror?
I actually trimmed the beard today. Thank you very much.
Very nice, Sasquatch. So Zach, how are you doing? I feel like we haven't caught up with you in a long time. since the last
Doing all
time.
right.
Yeah.
You're a little quiet though.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Doing all right.
Yeah. I really do like your camera. Your camera's good. A little
Thank you.
jealous.
It's a fancy ass photography camera.
Nice. Nice.
Probably more camera than I need, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I like the fun. Go with the fun. I'm really jealous. Like, enjoy it.
That's where the COVID checks went to, was the camera.
That's okay. That's okay. I've got some tax refund in here. I've got some COVID check, all that good stuff.
Yeah, Jen's got a very fancy wildlife camera. And so I was like, hey, can I get a nice portrait camera? And yeah, it worked out.
Nice.
I feel like, Zach, this is the like inside exclusive interview camera.
I know, right?
Like up close with Zach. Here's how we tell me about your artistic dreams. I don't know why I keep doing the. Yeah.
I don't know, but you could also do phone porn if you wanted to. I mean,
hey, if it pays well,
a flavor for everyone, I'm sure.
We do need band money really bad.
I'm pretty sure you can work that out then. I've
offered for my neighbors, like, hey, you need a babysitter, because I'm sure I can do a better job than a 14-year-old girl. Like, dude, babysitting pays a lot. I got 3 kids and I'm an expert.
I know. Well, 3 kids charges a lot too. So yeah. Just saying. Exactly. Just saying. So thanks for getting back together, guys.
Yeah, of course.
You guys ready to kick it? Awesome. Okay, so here's what I want to do. So I did a little homework this time and did a little bit of research. And what I found is that I know nothing about this genre of music. Like, let's start it way back, going back into like, where does this genre of music, this synth pop, come from? Where did it start? How did it evolve? Where did you find interest in it? Let's go to the beginning.
So synth pop started in the late 70s, early 80s in the UK. And it was a lot of the punk kids who were, a little artier, a little more experimental, got a hold of some synthesizers and started making real stripped back, DIY music with this new technology. And so you had people like Gary Newman with Two Boy Army, Human League, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, really kind of figuring the shit out from the ground up, figuring out how the synthesizers worked and how music worked and how to put it all together with the real DIY ethos of the punk scene. And that sort of grew and gained traction. And by the mid 80s, it was really kind of the if not the dominant pop genre, then at least a major player in the scene. Early groups like Human League had morphed from their really minimalist stripped back roots to pop music, basically pop music using this new technology. Gary Newman started to get some big hits. Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark had at least one big hit stateside. Depeche Mode came along. And as they started, developing, music based around this technology, there are all these kind of, I guess tropes that developed around the synthesizers. And time passed, grunge killed off synth pop, whatever. Then sometime in the probably mid-aughts, a bunch of people started thinking about, oh, you know what? I grew up with the synth music of the 80s. I'm gonna try to recreate that. And so they started pulling all these little elements from different synth pop groups, different like theme songs, stuff like that.
Sampling,
and
right, that was the sampling. Be kind of, well, I guess before that, but Anyway, keep going.
Which one?
That was a little bit before, but sampling. But he's talking about like pulling tidbits, right? So not only just creating stuff, but I think also I remember that being a huge thing in kind of like the early to mid aughts, maybe a little bit before even sampling.
But, I think sampling grew up with hip hop, right? So
yeah, totally. No,
yes,
hip hop pioneered sampling.
Yeah. Pioneer is a good way to put it. Yeah,
but
hijacking.
But
I don't think hijack. I think they anyway.
So you had these producers in the mid aughts kind of doing, you know, a little nostalgic thing with synthesizers that were cheap and easy to get because they were out of vogue. So you could get, you know, high-end instruments for relatively little money, because, you know, up through, I don't know when, 2005 maybe, you know, guitars were still kind of the norm for rock music, certainly. And you know, pop music was really in the box. It was real computer driven. So you had you know, the indie producers reaching back, getting these older vintage instruments that they could get for nothing, and starting to produce you know, kind of nostalgic music that they had grown up with. But all that, all the influences from the 80s, and also their sense of dance music, their sense of rhythm and drive, kind of combine into a slightly new flavor of synth pop. And that had a couple of different names: Outrun, new retro wave, synth wave, I think being the most used one. And then, you know, it also hybridized with like dream pop, and you have like M83 doing stuff like that. And you had people who were you know, a little more deliberately throwback, like say Time Cop or Kavinsky. And then you had people who were kind of using this palette to make newer pop music, and you know, like the Midnight, I think I would categorize as that. And so where we came in, I'm not certain about Noah, but you know, I was kind of from the same place where, you know, I grew up with you know, my parents' Tears for Fears albums, and listening to Depeche Mode on the radio and all of that. And then just sort of falling back into it. I started making this kind of music around, I don't know, 2015 probably, because I found someone on Craigslist who wanted to trade a Roland Juno 6 for a Telecaster, and I had a Telecaster that I didn't care too much for, and at the time they were worth about the same. So I'm like, yeah, you know what, that's a reasonable deal. So I made the trade and just fell in love with analog synthesizers.
So before that, were you making music? Were you trying to, what kind of music were you trying to make? Did you know you were going to sort of evolve this way, or is this just where you started?
No, I had been in punk bands and rock bands and a lot of, you know, noisy rock bands, you know, on the shoegaze into things probably, you know, influenced by stuff like Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I've been, you know, making music since forever. And, you know, it was always something that kind of sat in the back of my mind. My college roommate my freshman year was a DJ. and he showed me how to use Fruity Loops. And we made some, just not great techno music. Um, but I had a lot of software synthesizers built into that. And so it was something that had been, in my, on my radar, but it wasn't something I ever really tried to, actively pursue until probably until I met Noah.
Sound about right to you, Noah?
I will confess, when it comes to the history of things, I am an idiot. That is definitely Zack is the more articulate and more knowledgeable of the two. I'm just the
dork. I am a dork.
He's a dork. I'm a nerd. He's a dork. That's probably a good way to put it. Yeah, my history is pretty sad. So my background's actually in folk.
Do we have old Noah music that I get to listen to later?
Yeah. So the album we just put out is my 8th album, going back to my first one that I put out by myself, when I was 17. Yeah, with my title track, "Can You Smell the Sex in Here?" That was actually my first delve into Fruity Loops. That's what I was laughing at when he mentioned that. That was my first. It's something besides folk. But yeah, so I mean, I grew up listening to folk, like Jim Croce was always playing in the house, that kind of stuff. That was more where it was, and then as I got older, more folky beach music. Jack Johnson, before it was cool, as the old people say.
You fantastic hipster. Go on.
Donovan Frankenreiter, Tristan Prettyman, all those kind of folks. There's a few more. Anybody Off the Shelter video, but so I did that, and then I did singer-songwriter for a long time, and I kind of followed in that vein. And that's kind of where I really focus more on how does a song go together more than anything else, and it was just that. So that was kind of my focus. Then I kind of started figuring that out around 20 to 22 was when I really kind of started, these are actually sound like good songs, and they're not coherent. The first time I had like a little kid band when I was 16, but started doing that. And that was awesome. That was cool. I remember though, we were probably 3 years into it, and felt like we were doing really good. And I felt like I started knowing what I was doing in the band world. And some guy was, I was like, "Oh, hey, who are you?" I'm like, "Oh, we're Radio One." He's like, "Oh, it's cool. I know you. I've heard of you guys. You guys are like the 90s alt rock band." And it just like struck a chord with me. I was like, holy shit, we're doing the same thing that's already been done 100 times. And it didn't sit well with me. So then from like the last 2 years of the band, it was like, we got to go in a different direction. We got to figure something out. And so my journey was a little bit more personal. And so at the time, they were already big, but like Muse, I started being exposed to them, Silver Sun Pickups, and just a lot of other bands who started kind of injecting that kind of as a backing tracks, depending on the band. I know Muse doesn't, but really into the scene and into their music. And so I started pulling that stuff in and kind of trying to figure out how that all works. And then that band kind of ended and moved on. And I decided I'm going to figure out, I've done the folk, I've done the rock. I got to figure out if I'm going to survive as a musician, I got to get ahead of this wave. And I think it's this digital thing. I got to figure it out. And so for about 7 years, I did everything I could to kind of figure out that. Anything from going to building a custom guitar that plays synthesizers. There was a period of time, if you named a pedal, I probably had it, to get whatever weird sounds, to all sorts of interesting stuff. And then, and then I met Zack, and then he kind of started introducing me more to the synthwave stuff. And I was like, this is what I'm looking for. And I put down the guitar, and I, officially switched to keyboards then. And now we both play keys because more synths is always better. So yeah, my journey was a little bit more personal, I think. But yeah, that's how I kind of found the genre.
It's a good journey though. I think so when you imagine putting this together and playing this, did you imagine the stage set? Did you imagine are they going to play it on the radio? Did you imagine like what the evolution of the sound was going to be, or did you just go with the sound that you wanted to create?
Little column A, little column B. So I made a lot of shit songs before we made a good one. I remember, a period of 5 years, and I would be frustrated with myself. So, I haven't written a good song that I like in 5 years, kind of thing. But that was because I was kind of feeling it out. So I do imagine, I think part of it is, so pulling from what I know and the structure, because I think folk and the genre go together really well. If you listen, like Maggie Rogers has I think kind of her first interview with Pharrell, and she kind of talks about how she pulled in folk music with kind of like French house and dance music, and that's so they mesh well together, and it's kind of along the same veins. And so what I imagine is, so there's these really cool sounds that are out there and are available, and you can do anything you want with them. How do I make that palatable? Right. And then at the same time, how do I, while I'm making it palatable, because if you don't have a good, if it's not palatable, no one wants to listen to it. Right. And that's, if you're a cocky front man, you want everyone to hear you who you can. So how do you get an audience, right? And so I think that journey took a while too. Is I could make all sorts of really cool stuff, but how do you condense it, and how do you make it to be able to be on a radio? How do you make it so people want to dance to it a little bit, or how listen to it, or also in the same veins of the traditional rock stuff that we grew up with, right? How is the structure the same and familiar? So familiar enough and new enough. Kind of that thin line, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I spent my teen years as a angsty punk rocker and art kid, and it's probably weird for a lot of the younger kids to think about now, but like in the early aughts, pop music was the enemy, right? It was like you were if you were a rocker, then you were against all that plastic pop bullshit or whatever. And it took a long time for me to really appreciate that it takes a lot of talent to write a catchy song, just like something that people actually get stuck in their head and want to hear. And like that like I can make noise all day long, but it's a lot more challenging to write a good catchy song. And hopefully the stuff that we're making is clever and in some ways challenging, but I'm at the end of the day, I want it to be something that people like to listen to, and that's its own special skill, and something that Noah brought to the table with his background. Because if you can write a good folk song, you can write a good anything, right? Because it's songwriting stripped back to its barest essentials, pretty much. And we kind of had that synergy where he was the a better songwriter, but I had a lot of experience shaping noise, essentially. I guess the production side of things, how things sound, how things move, that kind of stuff.
So yeah, so I guess that brings us up to Painted City and how you guys came together, and what attracted you guys to work together with each other. I've met so many people who have played in so many different bands, and there's that magic you get when you get two people who get each other. So how did you guys meet?
Craigslist.
Oh, so sexy. So tell me some more.
It was hot.
What were you looking for when you were on Craigslist?
Wet work.
Oh, I knew it. You want to be the fluffer?
Yeah, no, that was it. We were Craigslist, man seeking man who plays instrument. Nothing. I mean, I feel like that's how, I don't know about like the studio put together bands, but I feel like 90% of volume of bands is Craigslist.
It's probably
dirty
true.
Craigslist.
Nasty and primal at the same time.
Yeah, I don't remember what the original one was, but he had posted something like, looking for a synth player for electronic rock band or something like that. And we had another dude out the gate, Josh, who we're still friends with, and contributed to our latest album, Histories, available now wherever you get your music.
Yeah, plug it as much as you can.
But yeah, Noah had initially played guitar, and we had a bass player, and I was doing keys, and we spent a few months trying to find a drummer, and eventually gave up and settled on a drum machine.
They're way more reliable. Drum machines don't go homeless when they lose their girlfriend.
They don't want to write songs in the band either.
Drum machines don't pawn your amp for meth.
Ooh, that's true. That happened to Zack.
That went to a dirty place fast.
But
it's okay. We're here now. We're here.
And so we started doing that, and we wrote a handful of songs. And we were making a little bit of progress, and then we became a tech startup. And
and I think that's where our stories converge, and how I met you guys.
So we're making some progress, and we're like, all right, we're gonna have to start booking shows. We're gonna have to start, doing all the business stuff that a band has to do. And Noah, being the business person, I think, was like, if we're gonna do this for ourselves, we might as well do it for other people. Duplication of effort or whatever. And then I don't know, you had a school project or something, you're just like, yeah, might as well make this a school project, double dip there.
Yep.
That's the long and the short of that story.
Yeah, my 2022 resolution is to talk less. It's really hard for me.
This is not the forum where you honor that resolution in any way, shape, or form.
But it would be like me talking for an hour.
Yeah, we don't have to go into that direction.
Yeah.
But
no, it was
Audley was fun, but we can take two steps to the left.
We can talk. I mean, if we're recording, we can talk about like the concept, right? So as a band, right, it kind of you just put your heart and soul into music, and then it turns out I've learned through previous experience having a band that was decently big. If you want to get going, and not even like very far, if you want to get 50, 100, 200, 500 people, the music becomes 15% of the effort, I would say. The marketing, the booking, the making sure you're professional, and so, especially if you have like a 3-4 person band, showing up on time, having regular practice, all the block and tackle stuff. At that, most of it's marketing, I would say, but it becomes hard. And so, kind of like Zack said, the idea was like, well, if we're going to go out and do this, what are the pain points for musicians? What are the pain points for listeners? And how do we kind of find a way to bridge that? And so I think, we did Audley from a good place of trying to be better and trying to disrupt that world, which I still do think it's ripe for. The timing wasn't great. I think we all three of us had kids. And then, it kind of flopped from there because of that. I think we just weren't ready to not take a paycheck for a year while we all had babies. It was part of it.
And honestly, COVID would have just eaten that company alive. So it worked out.
It kind of worked out.
Things worked out the way they're supposed to.
I will say it's not that I still wear my t-shirts all the time.
The t-shirts are highly comfortable. Like, I mean,
so
the
comfy.
best fabric I've ever. I mean, like, I would buy more band t-shirts if they were that fabric.
That was the goal. Was it doesn't matter what the t-shirt says. People will wear it as long as it's comfy.
Yeah. So that actually brings me to an interesting point that I was going to bring up earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt. With COVID, because, and I'm not going to dance around the word. A lot of people I've seen in a lot of podcasts say the thing. We'll talk about it. So with COVID, I think my perception is that there's a lot of room for interruption in that industry. And there's a lot of people making their way around the label just to do the thing that they love right now, right? Away from the promoter just to do the thing that they love. And I'm not saying there's too much money in labels and too much money in promoting that those are going to go away. But I think that what I'm seeing is a lot of shifting by the artists. And so I'm wondering, as you're putting together histories and you're putting together, the sound that you want to present to the world the way you want to, how is that, did that affect you in how you put it together? How did you put it together? And going forward, do you think that that change will be a global change, as in not just you, but within the industry? Or do you think that that will shift back to normalcy someday when things are normal?
That's a lot of questions. And it's
Sorry. I like to spit them out and then shut up for an hour.
I will actually go into history a little bit on something, having been doing home albums, except for a few times. So first and foremost, you have to understand the background. So music recording and music playing and music production since, I don't know, early to mid 90s has totally changed. And that in itself, you used to be able to the only way to record in 1990, not the only, but essentially the only feasible way to record was to go to the studio, right? And then these not only recording studios and DAWs became more readily available, but microphones and this and that, and then all the stuff that's in the computer. If you want a compressor, it has all that. I'm not saying it's all perfect and it's better or any of that. I'm not making those accusations, but it was absolutely ready, more available. And so suddenly it was, well, I can do this on my own, and it doesn't need to be perfect. I remember listening to this, Mason Jennings talking about his first album. He just did it on a 4-track player with a crappy microphone in the middle of an empty house, right? So there are great albums that come out that are like that. And so it kind of depends on your sound and your song and your heart, I would say, really. So that became feasible. And then that really has advanced in the last 15, 20 years. And then COVID hit, right? And so now you have a bunch of people stuck at home who are not going out to bars, not eating, not drinking. And, they have music that they do. And suddenly, now you might as well do it in the basement kind of thing. I think that's the history. I think it's important to understand. So that the stage was already kind of set. I think what we did is going to be a little bit different than everybody else, because we are, we are analog, and when we play live, but we have, like when we record, because we have synths, we have the ability to do everything in MIDI and then plug it in and do all the tone shaping and all that kind of stuff. But once the notes are there and we like it and it's done, right? I don't think everyone has that luxury. And so for us during COVID, we had virtual band practice. We didn't stop, and we decided it was a good time to finally, we have a whole bunch of songs, let's record them and let's do the production, kind of like wrap it all up and put it in a nice package. And it worked really well for us. And we did something very similar to this, where, we'd send stuff back and forth. We got in the same DAW and we just started going. And then we ended up in just doing the vocals in the studio.
Which studio did you guys use?
The Spot. They're awesome. Everyone should go there. Glenn and Rich are
I like
awesome.
to plug the important things.
And we're going to be going back there soon. So new single coming out in the spring. Anyway, so I don't think the future, I don't know. I don't know where the future is going to go. I don't think it's going to be home everything. I think we've already seen that wave come and go. If you look at what was available 20 years ago, 30 years ago versus what's available now in terms of variety of music, you have so many more options. It's like craft beer, right? Remember 20 years, 30 years ago, it was like, you want Coors or Bud, light or heavy, right? And if you're, maybe 18, it's like Natty Ice or Keystone, right? Or something like that, right? That we now, you can go to any store and get like any freaking gas station and get something nice, right, from a brewery down the street. I think musicians are the same way now. There's a lot of good stuff that's out there, and they're on minor labels or less. I don't know. I don't think that's going to change. I think there's still going to be big and small labels and all that kind of stuff. I don't see that changing much.
Yeah.
Zack,
Are you finding that there's more opportunity for you to promote and have your music heard? There seems to be a lot of different channels for that now.
Yes
and no.
Yeah. So like labels are, the way things worked in the before times, back in the 1900s.
Easy child.
You would start a band, you would write some songs, you'd play some shows, record a demo, shop it around. Maybe you'd get a buzz going, and then you'd have a label pick you up, and then they would, push you through the channels to get your music into the ears of whoever they could, right? Labels don't do that anymore. Labels want you to already have a following. They want you to already have been able to use TikTok or whatever the hell the kids are using now, whatever, post TikTok.
There's a post TikTok?
Fucking Minecraft.
What he's talking about. I am too old to understand what he's talking about.
You
You're using these words. I don't know what they mean.
you want to feel goddamn old? Okay. 100 gigs.
Go fuck yourself.
Like the poster children of hyperpop were discovered by performing an online music festival on Minecraft.
That's what I mean, though. That's exactly what I mean. It to me, I'm like, I'm too old for this shit. But here's the thing: is that then the audience is getting bigger because you've got Gen Z and you've got the millennials and you've got whatever comes after all of them, and it's just getting huge. That audience is huge, and they're all tech savvy, and they're all doing things in ways that we wouldn't have even thought of 25 years ago, right? So my kid will probably go at some point and check out, I mean, my older kids, I'm sure, do go and check out music online in different forms that they never could, which means you could probably get a following. It's more segmented, which is going to take longer. But once you start getting that momentum going, it seems like there's more opportunities for you to present without the intermediary of a label.
Yeah, no, it's you can absolutely do it yourself, but on the other hand, you're doing it yourself. You're on your own.
Yeah. The platforms there. I would agree. Yeah, there's a lot of platforms, but you have to have. I mean, it's a second job for us, right? We're up to midnight half the time. I mean, Zack, how late were you doing that post for your mom's house last night?
Jesus, I have no idea.
Exactly. Right. It's that, and it's also becoming. You have to be a marketing expert, I think, to get traction.
Or at least well versed. You have to be
at least well versed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could be like us. Like, I'm a business guy, and I like math, which is probably why I like music. But I'm not a marketing guy. But I've effed up enough times to kind of be sort of okay-ish, right? But that's it. We were fumbling through it because I don't think Zach's a marketing guy either. So if you have a guy like that, that's great. But I mean, it can be, right? It can be. You can get 20,000 followers digitally without ever playing a show. That stuff happens. You can get famous by playing a show in Minecraft.
Would you guys ever do that? Would you ever take that path just to see what happens?
Minecraft?
Whatever. Minecraft, TikTok, pick your poison. I mean, with the invention of meta, evolution to meta. It seems like, people are out there buying property in a digital verse that isn't real, but they're using real money to do it. So, I mean, at this point,
it's all Snow Crash.
Everything's on the table at this point. Like, it's whatever you want it to be. So are you guys going to do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we are. Yeah. I mean, our 2022, we just talked about it. There's Wednesday is 2022 goal is to do TikTok and hit that hard. I know that's late in the game and not super creative in that genre, but we're trying to figure out how to do that better. And and what platforms to do it on. But you're right, we can do the anything is everything in terms of platform, and some stuff works and some does and some stuff doesn't. What we're really having to figure out is sometimes we have like 100 different ideas and we don't have time to execute all of them. So where do you get your biggest bang for the buck? Like for example, I have this over here.
Oh, I am so excited. Oh my God, it looks so good. Look at that.
So I don't know. Let me turn the blur off, but
I know. We are going to go out and drink some of these soon.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
So we did this. This was a marketing idea where we just said, it actually came from Kid Rock. We're like, Kid Rock, doesn't he like double dip in shows and has his own beer he bought a share, right? And then he makes, in his writer, he makes everyone, the venue, sell his beer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, we can do something similar to that. We'll make a beer, and then we put like a QR code on the side to our music.
Nice.
Because that's coming back. But that's a marketing thing. We actually have gotten way less hits than I thought we would on that. I thought it would be way better for marketing, but it's being creative in that. But you have to, some of it you have to fail and keep trying, and some of it hopefully works better.
Do you have relationships? Are you going to try and sell that at your shows too?
That was
it's all gone now.
It's all gone. That was
the
idea.
It gone?
As I said, there's only a case left.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that part.
But I'm going to try to talk him into making more. It actually is really, it's an IPA. I'm not even an IPA guy. It's actually really good. And I'm not just saying that.
Same ballpark. I'm not an IPA guy, but it was one bed. It was pretty good.
It was good.
It's amazing how tasty things are when your name's on it.
I'm not biased whatsoever.
Cheeseburgers, baby.
Now, to go back to, what the future is, part of what we're seeing now, and this has probably always been the case, I have no idea, but it's increasingly the case, is that there's a saying about social media that if you're not spending money on it, then you're not the customer, you're the product.
Mm-hmm.
The musicians are the customer in social media. There is an industry built around selling musicians tools or guides or schedules, information to tutoring for how to navigate social media. There's a whole economy of selling things to musicians and singers, hopefuls, whoever the people who are trying to use these products to get the reach that they promise, and extract money from them in order to do that, right? Facebook is just the most egregious example of that, where you can make your band page and have people follow your band page, and then you can post your shit on your band page, and then they don't see it because you didn't pay Facebook $5 or whatever so that they're allowed to see it. And that's the new economy, is getting just a couple of bucks from musicians from everything they want to do, basically. TikTok has historically been better about that sort of thing. They tend to support their creators more than a lot of other social media has. But they also steal your information and build robots with it or something. I don't know.
Give it to the Chinese. It is a Chinese company,
I know. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
Just laughing.
So, I mean, I think that's all a fair point. I think that I think it's no matter what the channel is, bands have always struggled to be heard. Mm-hmm. And they've always been the product. I mean, you think about it, a band, even a successful band, doesn't really make money on the music. They make money on the merch, mm-hmm. which means they have to tour shows, and they have to go and pimp themselves to the, anyone who will come to their small venue to help sell
Yep.
those things.
And increasingly less in the last 10 years or so. Really in the fallout of the Napster era, a lot of when CDs died and record labels stopped making bazillion dollars for a disc of plastic. They're like, all right, we need to figure out a new way to make money. We need a cut of their merch, right? So they started signing artists on they call it 360 deals, where they get a cut of touring, they get a cut of merch, they get a cut of everything. And so it's gross, but I don't know. Here we are.
I would argue it's good and bad. Like anything, it's a double-edged sword. Because I think with that, and with the variety of music now available, and now it's not necessarily here are the 20 bands that are going to be big. I mean that's, I guess, the big bands that still how it works, but there's kind of there's different economy levels, right? There's the mega bands, and then there's kind of like the well-known but not mega bands, and then there's probably 3 or 4 layers down below, or below that. But I mean, I think with the 360 deals, they can engage with bands that typically they wouldn't have 15, 20 years ago, that are smaller. So that's the nice thing is, like, out of the 6 million bands that are in the US, what are the chances, that you're going to be picked? I think those odds have increased. I mean, it's still like, it's the equivalent of buying like 5 lottery tickets versus 1. But I mean, it's still a higher chance. So I do think there's a good in that, but there's also a bad, because it makes it harder to make a living, I think, for musicians, right? So if people are trying to, I could tell you 100 different people who are trying to switch full-time to music, and how to make a sustainable living off of that is difficult, and it is because of things like that, because you no longer get your merch, you no longer get your ticket sales. We're doing a show where I think we get $4 out of 20 for a show, and it's kind of, and there's a 2-month clause where we can't play a show before or after in a 45-mile radius, which that's great.
Not new though. That's not new.
It's not new, and it's great if you're big. It doesn't make any sense if you're us, right?
Right.
That kind of stuff. So what makes sense of that anyway. So yeah, that kind of stuff does hurt when you're small, right? And you're essentially funding everything out of pocket in the hopes that you'll be whole in the back end.
Nice. Yeah. So let's talk along those lines about the local scene. Let's talk about couple different things that I had some general questions on. So when you're putting together a show and trying to get out there and play so you can be heard, because that's the end game, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going about finding the venues to play for? And have you partnered up with any other bands or any other artists in order to build a bill that you can travel with?
Yeah, we're only just starting to build the kind of networks that we need to get that shit done. Denver actually has a pretty solid dark wave scene, and we're not exactly dark wave, but we're adjacent. It's all synth music, and so we've started to make some connections with those bands. Started to build relationships with some of the venues out here, and that's more Noah's bag. I don't talk to people.
I hadn't heard. So what venues are you looking at to play?
So I think so we have, who's next? So Jester's Palace, which I think is a new one.
Where is that at?
Somewhere downtown. I have the address somewhere. We're not playing that one. Painted City, it will not officially be playing. Zack and I will be there. We have a clause that says we can't play.
Oh, I mean, if you were gonna invite someone else to go play there for you.
We know some of the bands playing, and it's going to be a good show. You should check it out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to attach a concert calendar, if you will.
We have that. So then after that, we're playing Your Mom's House. That's actually what a ridiculous name for a venue, but the venue is actually really cool. They're very professional, and it's a good venue. It's got a good vibe, good energy. I really like it. Yeah. Then we're playing with it. We're opening for Night Drive, who's out of Austin. And then we have who's next? March. Then we're playing at Lions Lair. We're either headlining or co-headlining. That show is going to be all bands that we've started building a network with, which is nice. And some of those guys are still some of these bands, all three of these shows were somewhat similar bands. So the networking is working really well. And then after that, a couple days later, 2 days later, we're playing at Westfax Brewing on the 12th, Saturday, the 12th of March. We have a few more things in the books. We're trying to I think we got something halfway done at High Dive in April. And I think we're trying to get something together at Black Sheep down in the Springs. Thank you for that.
Good folks down there. I love them.
They seem really cool. Also in April, we're trying to target that. So, we actually had to turn down a show for them recently, opening for someone who's really cool. Was Magic Sword. They seem to be decently big and have a really cool show.
Nice.
Unfortunately, we had with Omicron surging, it just didn't seem right for us. And so that's that.
COVID thing is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
So let's circle back to the album then, because I want to go back, and I know you guys are great for doing this twice, so I appreciate that. But let's go. If I can get it twice. So let's go back to a couple of things that I thought were really interesting. And I just want to make sure that we hit them. One, I really like the ownership of the ecosystem of your own album. So not just creating the music and writing the music and the lyrics and producing it, but also the creation of the artwork and the distribution. So walk me from the beginning. One, how you two recorded it. Then two, let's go into about the artwork and the album cover, and then pressing and distribution. And go.
Do you want to start, Noah, or should I take that?
Why don't I start about how we did it, and then the artwork is going to be all you, and then distribution's kind of a mix probably.
Mm-hmm.
Does that work?
Sure.
So we had this collection of songs. I don't know. We started 10, 12 something ish songs. And when COVID hit, I knew we were going to be in for a while. I didn't think it was going to be like a 3-month thing. So I said, hey, let's do an album and put this together. And we started doing the home version. We had 2 songs done. And I kind of said, if we're going to do all this effort, like, let's do the vocals in the studio, because I'm really picky and every singer hates how they sound. And so let's do the vocals there. So we had a previous connection who we liked with the studio, and we kind of got that time booked. And we did about 2 songs a month over, 4 months, I guess. And then it became kind of this flurry of activity where we had everything written and everything. Some of the songs, like, No Stars Between Us and Run, were done. We've had, the production was just kind of putting it in the right format, but all the tone, all the stuff, all the MIDI was all done because we've had those written for a long time. And then there's some songs like Feather and Talk to Me, which were written 2 months before we started recording. And it was, hey, I came up with this melody and the supporting synth track to go with it, and that's it. And we got to do everything else. And so sometimes, the deadlines were always hard to meet, but it was always, we're trying to balance, what songs we doing next and what are we doing. And it was really fun. So we had to do the production. The production is like the meat of it, right? So I think we were talking the other day, and it's like the writing is 25%, and then the production's like 50% of the work. It's the nitty gritty. Hey, can you turn your, attack down 0.2 of a knob turn because it's a little whatever with this, or how much space? We talk a lot about space. That's the key in songwriting, is where is the space how much space you have, where is it in the EQ range, all that kind of stuff. More space is generally better. And then, yeah, it's all that stuff, right? And then the last 25% is kind of the finishing, actually recording it, and then putting all the fun stuff in, your compressors, your de-essers, your, all the EQs, all that stuff. Not that that's really easy, but in the scheme of things, the production's the meat of it. So we did these songs 2 at a time. We just did the vocals. Everything else was done with us. So, all of the synths and all that kind of stuff we did at home. Again, because we're all analog, which is kind of really convenient. We didn't have to go in and try to get a guitar riff perfect every time. So we did all that, and then it also kind of helped us prepare for shows as well, which is nice because we had all that stuff done. There's a little bit of tweaking of what are we playing live versus what are we triggering. Our big thing is we try to get a live experience as much as us performing as possible. So we're not just hitting play and going. But yeah, I would say that was the process. And it also it's really nice, I would say, as a vocalist to work with a studio. There's how you sing and how you sing in a microphone and how you do all this stuff. And it's an art, really. And it's also a science at the same time, right? And how do you get certain enunciations and syllables, and how do you pronounce this? And are you aware that you do this with this line? Having someone who is there and records all the time. Some of the stuff, when you're the person singing it, you don't hear it sometimes. They go, hey, are you aware that you blend these 2 words together? No, I was not. Now that I know, I can fix that. No problem. But it's really good to have someone listening and saying, oh, it's going to turn out this way if you do it that way. Not that we can't do it, but just to have that really much more professional polish when you do it was really helpful. So yeah, and then we cranked that stuff out, and then came the suit. Again, it's kind of like everything else, right? It's all the nitty gritty, the artwork, the distribution. I'll let Zack kind of take it from here, but yeah.
Yeah, no, so I mean, in today's musical ecosystem, the LP is kind of, it's not the predominant form of music anymore. It's up until the Napster era, bands would go, they'd cut an LP, and maybe it would have 1 or 2 good songs on it, and then they could sell it for $15 and whatever. Then post Napster, people aren't stopped buying all of that, right? They just bought the 1 or 2 songs they actually wanted on iTunes. And like now it's hardly, the LP is hardly even a useful marketing tool. But we're old assholes, right? We both grew up with albums that we love and hold dear, and we wanted to make an album, a complete thing. I collect records, and it's not just here's 8 to 12 songs, maybe some of them are good. It's an entire, to me at least, an album is an entire aesthetic experience, right? It's the artwork, it's the songs, but it's also the combination of the songs. It's how the songs are produced. It's the entire vibe of the project for 30 minutes to an hour, however long it is. It's how I consume media more than like movies or TV or anything, right? Is a soft, like a work, a completed work. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to do that. We wanted to make a thing. And my background is in art and design. And I grew up just like super into guys like Peter Saville, who did a bunch of stuff for Factory Records, like all the New Order covers. That's all his stuff. And I always was just really intrigued by having just a super strong design element to the whole LP, right? So so I've been paying attention, designer, so I've been trying to make an entire visual language for the band, and sometimes I haven't always been on brand just because of what caught my interest at the moment, but right, so I wanted to create a real visual identity for the band, and also for the LP. So I think it was Leo Fender who said, people hear with their eyes, and so if you're producing something that has the right atmosphere, that's really going to feed in to the music. It's going to synergize with it. It's going to add to the entire aesthetic experience of what the album is. What I was doing specifically for this album is that, in synthwave there's a lot of tropes. It's very 80s tastic. There's a lot of neon, there's a lot of Miami beaches, there's a lot of fast cars and Ferraris and shit like that. Very Miami Vice, right? So a lot of what I was doing was like a deliberate subversion of that. Of the photography is, it's not a coastal city in the summer. It's all shots of a Canadian suburb in the winter. There's a lot of snow. There's a lot of it's not sexy cocaine glamorous. It's a lot more like how I grew up, right? And and I think that was fun to do for me. That was a lot of getting to play with certain textures, a lot of textures of analog film, a lot of, it jettisoned a lot of the lasers and space grids or whatever, the 80s aesthetic in favor of a certain earthier and more I don't know, down to earth vibe, which I don't know, in some ways is reflected in the music, because it is very emotional. It's very human. It's not, it's got a lot of, it's all synth music, right? So it's computers, but it's not impersonal. It's human. It's human music. And I wanted to, capture that feeling of of organic being. I wanted to get that sense of humanity while still referencing what it is 80s inspired synthesizer music.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun.
Nice. I like the artwork a lot. I think that it's got definitely, it's a juxtaposition that I think is nicely done.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And then
go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
It's something that we're, I think, trying to continue. We were in the world of marketing, video is king, which is something we're working on. We've been talking about music videos for forever, but trying to do some of our own. But we were talking about, we had someone who we were going to work with, and they said, "What's your storyboard?" And I said, "Give me 15 minutes, right?" And I kind of described something that wasn't very special, right? We're low budget or no budget. But I said, but no matter what, I was telling Zack, like, we got to have, like, if we're going to film it, we got to film it in the winter. there needs to be, needs to match the aesthetic of the album. It needs to match the theme. It needs to match this whole thing. And, when you create an album, it's not, the singles game on Spotify is where it's at. But I think for our first release, we wanted to have a foundation, and the foundation has to match. It has to be coherent. It has to be in theme. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of people have lost, like you think back to the days of the concept album and the story and the evolution of one song into the next, and how all of it kind of takes you on this journey. And I feel like that's missing from music right now. That is the one thing I would say that I miss deeply about the full album. I think, to your point, through Napster and LimeWire and everything else that kind of took that evolution, and here's your little snippet of an album. It was great for those kids who couldn't afford the album.
Mm-hmm.
It was also great for pirates, but it wasn't as emotionally satisfying as listening to a Pink Floyd album, or you know what I mean? So I think there's a part of me that kind of hopes that storytelling will come back, because that's really what's interesting to me.
I mean, that exists, but it's moved from rock to hip hop. It's like, Kanye is doing that, Kendrick Lamar is doing that, Frank Ocean, in the more R&B realm is doing that, Tyler the Creator is doing that, and they're putting out these really fantastic, complete works as LPs, that are in some cases narrative arcs, but at very least aesthetic wholes. And but rock music has really moved away from that. Dance music, with the exception of maybe like, I don't know, Daft Punk, has never really gotten
never really owned that at all.
Yeah, that's never really been their bag.
They owned it. I think they owned it in their package. I don't think they owned it in just the music on its own, but
that's fair.
I digress.
That's fair. But
yeah, I would agree. Dance, rock. I feel like rock. Remember you talked about like pop was like the plastic garbage when we grew up. I feel like rock is that way now.
Oh, you just missed hair bands. That's all.
I love it.
I do too. I just think that, I honestly feel like with the more we move away from labels and the more we move away from radio formatting, I feel like that opens the door for a lot more variety, because no longer are you structured within, your 1 hour clock. No longer do you have to hit that top 40 hit every 5 hours or every 4 hours or every 3 hours, depending on what format you're in. And you know what I mean? And I think, save country music, which is going to hold on to that as dearly and tightly as possible. Everyone else is kind of scooting away from that. I know. Right?
Sorry.
Up a little bit in my
particular.
mouth. Yeah. But I think, it does open the door for a lot more change and a lot more evolution to a more independent sound.
I think that's a great point. I'd love to tell you the story. So that it's right in the margin. So we talked to the radio station down in the Springs, and they were like, "Oh, cool, you guys' stuff. We'll put it in the morning show, yada yada yada." And it was some intern. She seemed nice. But we came upon this thing of like, well, what song do you want to play? And I was like, well, here's what we think are the hits. Here's, but tell me what you're looking for, yada yada yada. But to kind of shorten it down, essentially, it was, well, all the songs you're suggesting are close to 5 minutes, and I can't do it. And I was like, okay, but they're all under 5 minutes, and that's something we consider. We write longer songs in the genre. We're kind of medium to short for the genre. For synthwave, like they could be a 9-minute song of just, and half of it's just feeling it out, right? And we try to be a little bit more catchy, and that's why we're kind of like synthwave, synth pop, and we're a little bit, but they're still longer. They're 5-ish minutes, but it's a complete work, and I think it meshes well. But it was just like that. Well, it's too close to 5 minutes. I'm not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. I was like, well, we have one song that's 3.5 minutes. What about that one? They're just like, nah, it's just not gonna work. And like the next day I was listening to the radio station and they're playing Plush by STP, which is I clocked it at 5 minutes and 7 seconds, I believe, which don't get me wrong, I love
That's
STP.
a gold, though. You're going to have a hard time arguing with any music director about why
I'm
that
not
song is
saying
too
we
long.
can compete with STP in terms of view or listens in ears, but the point is the sample, we were told like, well, it's because it's this. Well, it's not. Just, call a spade a spade. It's not. It's, if you're STP, you can get away with 5 minutes, and we're not. And I realize that. I'm not trying to say we should get the same airtime as them.
Sure.
But I'm just saying, like, you're right. So the avenue is, so like this new single we have coming out, we are writing. It's like it's a little bit of a fuck you, and it says like, all right, you want a fucking radio song? I can write catchy shit. I can do it. We can do, we'll make it 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and we're gonna make this thing so catchy that your ears bleed. And we're kind of doing the production today, and I was like, nope, cut this down in half. It's got to be shorter. It's got to be shorter. It's got to be this. It has to have these elements, and we're doing that, right? And kind of it's and the song lyrics are a little bit of a juxtaposition and duality between wanting to make it as a band and grow, but also and a little bit of willingness to sell out, right? Because you have to if you want to make it a living,
right?
No, but also a little bit of selling the soul. That kind of hurts a little bit, but it's also a little bit of a fuck you of like, you know what, you want to do this, we're gonna do it. But you're right, when we're finding a platform to do it, we're finding somewhere else to do it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not the radio stations.
Yeah, no, punk bands in the 90s made it sound so easy to sell out. Like, oh no, people will just be begging you to sell out. I would cut off my foot to sell out.
Here's how you sell out to radio. Write a song that takes the space of Sex and Candy, which is I think 2 minutes and change. And then you fill out the time clock and you get played almost daily, almost 3 times a day because somebody needed to fill out the time clock. So that's how you sell out.
Noted. That will
no
be
soul, no soul. Just make sure it fits.
You make this shit a Pixie song. Get it out and done in 2 minutes, 15 seconds.
Yeah. These are options. I mean, but to that, I mean, I've been hearing since the 90s that radio was dying. Radio's dying. Nobody's listening to radio. It's too segmented. It's fragmented. It seems to struggle well. It's still there. People are always going to want to listen to the local radio station because it's free. And in some cases, that's where they get their new music. But I think that is evolving. I think that's been evolving for the better part of 20 years.
It was, we had a meeting with the publisher the other day, this week, I forget when. It was interesting. We talked about, how do we get stuff out there? And we talked about that exact same story that I told you. And he said, forget radio stations. If you're you, forget them. He said, TikTok is the way to go. 1, 2, there's some other tools that help you do targeted marketing campaigns. And then 3, he said, go to college radio stations because they're always hungry for new stuff. They will play you. You don't have to go through the BS of, well, it's 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I don't know. Like, and they don't like, and you get a lot more personality with the DJs, hey, this is the hip hop DJ. This is the whatever DJ. And they have a lot more freedom. And it made a lot of sense, to be honest. And I was like, wow, that really kind of sums up our experience with, larger, even independent radio stations. Not to knock them. I like that they're independent. I don't want to give them a bad rep. You got to do what you got to do to pay the bills. But, it to me, it made a lot of sense. And I was like, oh man, that I can see why we need to go that route.
Yeah, that's true. I think but to that, I think that's kind of at the heart of most of my questions is what is the evolution of music? Where does music go?
Well, that's something interesting that's happening right now is that TikTok is having an effect on how music is produced, right? Because it's for a lot of the commercially minded pop music. They're really trying to push it through that platform, and so what you don't need a good 3-minute song on TikTok. You need 15 good seconds. So they're writing this music to have, basically a piece of music that's 15 seconds and
give me the hook and nothing else.
Yeah. And like that's fascinating to me. Like, I'm a big,
short attention span theater right there.
No, like I'm a big Brian Eno fan, right? And he famously did all the sound for Windows 98.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I, reading some interviews with him about, when he was composing the startup noise for that. And it's just like, all right, how do I tell a story through sound in 3 seconds? How do I, and it started to become, questions of sound design and,
Mm-hmm.
and like, that was fascinating. And in the
There's a
same,
great TED talk on that, where they talk about the Intel Inside sound. They talk about, how do you take a singular sound, like a second of sound, and attach a relationship to it. And it's one of my favorite TED talks, because every one of those sounds I have a relationship with.
Mhm.
And it's marketing on such a level that it's primal almost, because it's keying into your auditory and keying into your emotional, and it I think it's fascinating. I don't know about 15 seconds. That seems like short attention span theater to me, but
Yeah.
Could you email that out?
yeah, I'll find that.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
I'll find it. It's one of my favorites. I've got it locked somewhere.
And like in terms of art, it's probably bad for the culture, right? It's probably,
It is the culture. That is
yeah,
the culture right now.
yeah, and it's probably not as fulfilling in terms of art, but in terms of design, it's fascinating, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do I craft just a perfect 15, like, the Max Martin pop formula was 3 strong hooks for a 3-minute song, and then repeat that as many times as you can in 3 minutes. Like, this is 3 strong hooks in 1 every 5 seconds or something like that. It's I mean, again, probably bad art, but fascinating design.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like the probably bad art that I went through a very good period of time where I was very much a music elitist, as this is garbage, that's garbage, these guys sold out, that's whatever. Yeah.
I've never been there. I want you to know I've never been an elitist.
Yeah, it's neither have I. No, and I've kind of come out of that now, where I'm like, that's cool. Like I get, it's kind of like cooking, right? Like there's nothing wrong with a good old fashioned grilled cheese. You know what I mean? Like I'll eat a fancy whatever, but hey, like if it fits the bill, right? But with the whole, well, this is like, I don't know. I think the whole, like, this isn't art, this isn't something, this isn't whatever. There's a saying, and it applies to business, and I think it applies to music as well, which is, do you want to be right or do you want to get it right? And at the end of the day, as a musician, you have to constantly ask yourself that question. Do I want to engage in TikTok? For me personally, like I'm not a huge social media guy. I just like to talk. And so no, I don't. But do I want to be right or do I want to get it right? And if how I marketed 10 years ago through word of mouth doesn't work anymore. And so I can bitch, I can complain, and I can talk, and I can try the old ways all I want. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be successful unless we're on TikTok and we're hitting that, and I learn about it and I get into it, and I, do what everyone else does. I assume, go to the bathroom and surf the internet, right? That's like the
Wow.
one drink in this guy, but no,
I know it's craziness,
but it's right. I mean,
but you're right. You're absolutely right. I think that, that's kind of where I'm getting at is we're kind of hitting this evolution, right? And we can hold dear to the fundamentals of what we believe the industry should be. However, the industry is evolving. And so I'm a big believer in, you can do your thing, but if you want to sell your thing, you got to package it. And
Yep.
so that evolution of also doing your thing, but making sure that it's functional in the market, I think, that's how a lot of artists are surviving, and
And
whatever that looks like.
And that's always been the case, right?
Right.
The reason we think of a pop song as 2 to 3 minutes is because that's what you could cram onto one side of a 45, right?
Right.
Without, destroying the audio fidelity. And then, once LPs became the norm, then, your prog rockers stretched out and did their thing. but fucking Wagner was writing what, like 3-day operas or some shit. You know, all the all the Beatles, the Pink Floyd, all that shit, that's all constrained by the technology, or if not constrained, at
Or
least
was until they decided to do it their way.
Yeah, it was all in conversation with the commercial delivery mechanism,
right?
Of music, right?
Right.
And that I don't know. On one hand, it's perfectly fine. No problems with that. But that's kind of some of the unfulfilled promise of the internet is that you could have. I mean, I think the Flaming Lips put out like a fucking 2-week long song or some shit like that, and it was just like procedurally generated or whatever. But
please stop jacking off on my right. Yeah, go on. It just seems like self-indulgence. Like, I don't need 2 weeks of anything.
Yeah, and then I think, who was it, Scott McCloud, the comic artist, is like, yeah, with the internet you're no longer constrained to the page, you have an infinite canvas. And a lot of online comic artists really felt that out, really flushed that out. And I feel like on some level music hasn't really leaned into the vastness that the internet can provide. It hasn't. I mean, there's been attempts on different levels to utilize, the interactive experience of the internet with music. Like I remember back in the early aughts, was it 9 Inch Nails put out some of their tracks and as basically as stems, just put all the stems on a player on the website, and you could kind of mix it to your heart's content.
Oh yeah, they did do that. They also took different versions, I think, of Year Zero and stuck them in bathrooms and put them on USB ports, and it was great. It was great. It was great music fun.
Yeah, the whole alternative reality game thing they did.
Mm-hmm. That was great. That was
a
lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Good album. Good concept for album number 2, Zach.
Mm-hmm.
Interactive.
Make it interactive, make it fun, and make it accessible.
Yeah, and not to get too on my soapbox here, but that's the fucking problem with NFTs is that
you don't want to go in that direction.
Fuck that. The goddamn promise of the internet is that suddenly scarcity is no longer an issue, and you want to impose scarcity on that? Fuck that capitalist bullshit. No. Fuck that.
I foresee an NFT for you guys in T-7 days. Yeah. I mean, it's the direction of where things are going. I don't know that I totally agree with NFTs. In fact, I'm not positive I totally understand them. I've learned a lot more recently, but when Melania Trump is jumping on board, you got to wonder what the art factor of that is.
Super high.
It converts natural resources into artificial scarcity for the sake of artificial scarcity. That's antithetical to art, right?
Is it?
That it is.
Art was commissioned in the early days.
Listen, I come from the school of Duchamp, right? Where he put out like the most influential sculpture of the 20th century, Fountain, in which he found a urinal and signed it and submitted it to a non-juried art show as a fuck you to the people who were in charge. And then like a couple decades later, when it was recognized as one of the most influential sculptures of the 20th century, he's like, fine, I'm going to sign 100 urinals and distribute them wherever they can, because fuck that. I'm going to devalue my art.
I mean, it is a tactic. I don't know if it's a good tactic, but it is a tactic. The question goes back to, do you want to make money with your art, or do you want to just produce art?
Yeah, well, I'm in a band with a business major, so
So you are
I would-
intending to make money, as I
I
know
would go
Noah.
the other route, is where we want to make enough money where we have the luxury
That one.
of defunding our art.
Right.
That's the problem I want to have.
The ability to say no to the NFT because your art is too valuable.
Yes.
No, I mean,
that's,
now listen, Daft Punk's last album is a shining testament to what you can do with unlimited money.
God, if only I had half the budget.
It is just a shining ivory tower of how good you can do something with unlimited money.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is an argument in favor of money.
It's so
I'm
good.
always arguing in favor of money, but I am also a business leader.
But the bank disagrees.
The bank laughs in my general direction. So Painted City, you mentioned you have another track that you guys have put together. Are you guys releasing that? When is that coming?
I think, well, it's going to be recorded end of March. One of the really valuable lessons that we learned with putting out the album is advanced marketing. And so we'll see when it comes out. But when you post, like if you just like, I'm going to go post this stuff on Spotify, that's great. But you have to have there's a shitload of graphics, and each site has their own whatever. You have to do the sync lyrics, which is have that all typed out. And there's different formats and different websites. That all takes a week to upload. And then there's the marketing campaign and all the fun bullshit that we love doing as musicians. So
yeah, we expect to see that out probably in mid to late April, which is coincidentally about when we're expecting the vinyl copies of Histories to hit.
We have to go back. We have to talk about the pressing of History. So let's retell that story. We did.
You, Zack.
Oh, yeah. I wanted a record. I wanted to have a record, so I threw money at it.
Nice. And do you want to tell the story of have you guys picked it up? You guys picked it up before, right?
Picked it up? What do you mean?
Well, you guys were pressing. Wasn't there a trip to Canada we talked about? No, that's just me.
Yeah, no. So so COVID has hit, it's hit all supply chains real hard. It hit vinyl production real hard. So I had initially been shopping around to get this thing pressed. I found a pressing plant in the Netherlands that I liked a lot. And went through the whole process, getting all that together. And then, at the end, they're like, all right, prices have gone up. Shipping's gone way up. And it's going to cost, I don't know, close
to double.
Yeah, twice what we had originally thought we were going into. So that was out. And so I started hitting, every plant I could find. And, there's not a whole hell of a lot of them out there anymore.
Right.
And they were all just backed up for months. And eventually we found and they all wanted, pretty big orders, like minimum 500 pressing. And we're not doing those numbers, right? So we had to find a place who could do it in a reasonable time frame at a reasonable volume at a price we could afford. Eventually we found this place, Microform in Canada, and
so I wasn't wrong. There's Canada in the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's being imported from the uncharted north, the wilds of Canada. And just like during the process of getting the quotes and getting everything, it's just like prices have gone up. Just the price of the raw vinyl has gone up.
I think it was 15%.
That hurt.
Yeah, 15%.
It did. It was like a 1.5 month period between getting a quote to actually giving him money. But it wasn't. So the hard part was also just like, can we just give you money? And they were like, no, that's not good enough. It's not only money, but you have to have everything, like the music done, which they don't use till like, they're not pressing it. They're probably not gonna be pressing it till March, April. But they had to have all, like, we were trying to originally, can we just get in the queue, throw some money at you, and then, you know, wrap up the album. So we started talking to them probably even way before that. But and then it was the artwork and it was everything else. It had to be specific format. We had to do a couple of revisions because they have their own template and yada yada yada, all the normal process stuff, right? And then we have to do a listen through to make sure that, you know, there's not something funky in the waves that they're putting together. We also did get a special mastering for the vinyl. So if you guys are vinyl junkies out there, do know that we did take the care to get a separate mastering for it. Yeah, so that was like the whole thing. And between the time of that, when we started and when we finished, it went up like 15%, I think. Which when you're a small band, that's a lot of dough. And so, yeah, it's, but you know, I think it's worth it. I think we created something that's really freaking cool. And, you know, when Zack was like, let's do a vinyl, I was all for it because, you know, why not? You got to go for it. Right. I think vinyls are a cool thing. And it's something you can have and you can hold. We can have it forever. And that's worth the investment, right? Of, you know, wherever this band goes, high or low or crash and burn, you know, we always have that, right? So, yeah.
Awesome. I love it. I love the idea of vinyl, everything about it. And then Histories, you've got that on Spotify.
Everywhere you stream music. So
everywhere,
Tidal, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, YouTube, several others I can't remember.
Awesome. And any last thoughts that you guys want to throw out there?
Come see us open for Night Drive, February 22nd at your mom's house. Venue, not
it's the 18th.
The 18th.
It sounds like a joke
March
when you
18th,
throw it out there.
March.
Nope.
We'll put it in the notes of all the shows. We'll put it in the notes.
Flash the date on the screen if you could. That would.
Yes. As soon as you guys figure out which date is the accurate date, I'm happy to put that in graphics on the screen. That'll be fun.
We have all the dates.
Awesome.
Sorry. I don't know. I would say yeah, take a listen. If you like local music, we're good. I don't know. I think what we do is good. I'm a little biased. I don't think it's, you know, I don't know.
Well, at this point, you're not local music because at this point, when this podcast goes live, you'll be international because anybody can access it. So you are no longer a local band. You are now an international band.
I
just need one out of country listen, and then you're an international.
I do have a friend who lives in Berlin who likes our album. So technically, we're international. I don't want to brag, but there's one guy in Berlin who's
really
bragging. Digging it. Nice. But no, I don't know. I would say, I don't know, two things. One, you know, thanks to folks who listen. Thank you for putting this together. I think the thank yous are always important, right? The whole point of, you know, musicians are nothing without folks who listen. So really, we're just a bunch of homeless, you know,
we know
jerks.
And take a shower, you filthy bastard.
take a shower, get a job. And without people listening, you know, we'd be nothing. So first and foremost, and people like you putting this stuff together, of course, we're happy to do this. You know, round two. Course, over and over again. We'll do this as many times as we need to.
Please,
if nothing else to fill
we'll do it again when you guys put some more music out.
Well, yeah, if nothing else to fill our insatiable egos. So yeah, that would be number one. And then two, yeah, take a listen. I think it's worth it. Like I said, there's no longer the age of I like rock, I like country, I like whatever. So just because you listen to X doesn't mean you won't like this. I think it's worth listening. It doesn't cost anyone anything. So do that and then come check us out live. I think we, you know, like we always try to put on a good show. It's a big focus for us. So hopefully we'll see people out there.
Awesome. Thank you. Zack, any last words?
You
already did yours. Yours are already the date in the show. I got you. We're good.
Buy our stuff.
And where would they buy it?
Anywhere.
Anywhere albums are sold.
PaintedCityBand.com.
Go online.
On sale now for pre-sale.
Whoa, whoa. Awesome.
Pre-selling now. No, like that. We're in a golden age of home recording. If there's a type of music you like, you can hear that genre, professional quality, produced in your hometown, wherever that is. And if you're in Denver, that means us. That means us. So
yeah,
if
it's a good point. If it's not us and you're in a different town, go out and listen to your local bands. Those people work hard sometimes.
Nice. And with that, we'll call it.
They work really hard to afford all the pot they have to smoke to write that music.
A lot of judgment in that in Colorado. We just get it. It just grows on the streets.
Falls from the skies.
Just
Falls from, like manna from the heavens.
Just tripping over joints in the street.
Let's spread the mythology so we can get more tourism. Keep it going.
It's like
awesome.
Three students just slipping on marbles.
Yes. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I appreciate it. See, wasn't that so much fun? I love those guys. Many thanks to them. Of course, they actually did that twice. So big love to them. The first time didn't take. What are you going to do? You want to check them out? I highly encourage you to do so. Of course, like they mentioned, you can find them anywhere free music is given. So iTunes, you can check them out on Spotify. I follow them there. Anywhere you're picking up your tunes. Otherwise, if you want to see them live, I highly encourage you to go ahead and get your pre-sale tickets to check them out with Night Drive. They'll be playing at your mom's house Friday, February 18th at 6 p.m. I'm going to be there too. We're going to hang out, have some beers, check out some music. It's going to be amazing. Otherwise, they'll also be at Lion's Lair March 10th. That's a Thursday night, 8 p.m. You can check them out at Westfax Brewing coming up. When is that? March 12th. That's a Saturday. Going to be there in the afternoon. Get there before 3 and you can check them out live. And of course, make sure you buy the album when it comes out. Histories will be in stores soon. At the very least, you can buy it on the website. Go check it out. Painted City Band. And of course, keep it locked. Source of the Sound. You never know when it's going to pop up, baby. It's going to keep coming your way. Any thoughts you have? Feel free to share those down in the comments. I look forward to you subscribing, and sharing. Have a great one.